so this thing is supposed to start at 12:10, but it's 12:03, and we like smashing stereotypes that Latinos are late. So we're fucking starting early. All right, so introductions first. On the most beautiful, handsome, guapo Filipino the world has ever seen, Jeff Ranjo.
I'm gonna wear this for the whole convention.
So Jeff was the...
No, I'm gonna take it off because it's freaking hot.
Yeah. Jeff was co-executive producer, head of story in My and the Three. He had worked many, many years at Disney on, Moana and Frozen and
Hercules.
Hercules, and then went to Sony to work on head of story on Surf's Up, awesome. and then Jeff was my story teacher at Cal Arts. Character design teacher. So who's the teacher now?
Exactly.
And then, I'll tell the story, but we basically worked on a Lego movie together that crashed and burned. So Jeff, is super proud to have Jeff on the team. And then next to me, this is super rare. Super, super rare. So this is the muse, Sandra Kiwa. So Sandra hates conventions, hates talks, hates humans. So the fact that she is here is a huge deal. Sandra not only inspired Maya and the Three, but she literally designed Maya and designed all the female characters in anything I've ever made. Sandra, I take way, way, way too much of the spotlight. It's because of her. And she really is the machine that inspires all of us. So this is Sandra Kiwa. And then I'm Jorge, and you guys know me now. We're all family. So all right. So we're not going to show anything. We're going to basically tell you all the stories that I wasn't allowed to tell in the press, or we weren't allowed to put in the book. And there will be a lot of sprinkles of wisdom, and a lot of sprinkles of hopefully inspiration for you guys, for anybody who like Maya and the Three. We used to go to conventions, we used to go to panels, and we obviously really like the ones that were inspirational and funny. We hated the panels that were just dry information or depressing things or bitching. So while you will get some of that from this panel,
I was gonna say, yeah.
Hopefully there's some nuggets of wisdom.
Yes.
So I'll start from the beginning.
But what we say here stays in this room.
Yes, we are all family.
We know how to find you.
We're gonna tell some stories.
Yeah, dirty laundry stays in the family. All right.
What is it called? Chisme.
So. All right. So where did Maya and the Three come from? After Book of Life came out, I was working at a studio called Real Effects, and they said, "We love Book of Life. Pitch us whatever you want to do next, and we want to do it." And I had 3 ideas. One was a Kung Fu space western. One was Maya, about a Mesoamerican Maya princess. And then the third one was too crazy, and I can't even name it, because when I say it out loud, it's not a good idea. So, no. This is currently in development at Netflix Animation. So, thankfully, I only pitched the space western at Real Effects. The space western is dealt with a border. Trump won the presidency. At that point, Hollywood said, do not do any stories about the border. And my thing was literally about the border. So just like Book of Life, it was time to put it in a little freezer, a Tupperware, or margarine thing, and put it in the freezer. And I remember, beloved mentor Guillermo del Toro said, "Oh, Gordo, what you should do now is you should play in somebody else." This is my Guillermo. Play in somebody else's sandbox. I did Blade 2. Cuarón did Harry Potter, and then he was like, "Iñárritu, well, he won't do it, but he should do one of these." So I, at that point, had become friends with Phil Lord and Chris Miller from the Lego movies, and they said, "Oh, Jorge, we have a movie that we think you'd be perfect for. It's about race." And so I hung up the phone, and I said, "Well, I love Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I love Clone High. I love the Lego movie. Fuck, I want to do a Lego movie, and it's about race, ethnicity, and identity, and culturalism, and all the things I fucking love." So I go to Warner Brothers, and I pull up, and it's this giant meeting with all the presidents of Warner Brothers who are all fired right now, so I can tell this story.
It's true.
We're gonna get in trouble.
This is true story. I can never work at Warner Brothers again.
Never say never.
Never. So I come into this meeting, right? I'm like, I have the pride of Mexico coming in with me, right? The eagle is flying behind me, and I sit down, and I'm like super excited, and everybody's there, and they're like, "Wow, we're really surprised that you would want to work on this." And I'm like, "Oh, what the Lego movie? Fuck, it was gonna be amazing. Race, oh my god!" And then they put a race car in the middle of the table, and I look at the race car, and everybody's like, and I went, "Oh, race? No, you mean race, vroom vroom?" So everybody's laughing, "Ha ha, Jorge, you're so funny," and I'm peeing my pants, right? So the president of Warner Brothers goes, "That's brilliant. A racing movie about race. Jorge, you're a genius." And all the pee in my pants went back in. And so we started working on this movie, and again, taking this idea and going, what if when you're born, you're given a certain amount of bricks, and some people are born with more bricks than others, and this movie deals with race and ethnicity and the race that is life, and this idea that it's not how many bricks you have, but what you do with the ones you got that matters, right? So that became the thing. Chris and Phil loved that idea. We started running with it. I hired Jeff. They started developing this movie. Sandra was designing characters. This Lego movie was gonna be amazing. And then we have a disastrous pitch where, again, this person has been fired, so I can tell this story. After, we pitched this crazy, amazing movie, he goes, "Hey, did you ever see Malibu's Most Wanted?" And I'm like, "Malibu's Most Wanted? The Jamie Kennedy movie about a rich white kid who gets sent to the hood because he thinks he's a gangster rapper, and the hood teaches him that that's not right, but eventually he learns about people in the hood," and he goes, "Yes, that's what this movie needs to be. Your movie needs to be about a rich white girl who goes to the hood, but in this case it's the barrio." And the way he said the barrio, I was like, oh.
It's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, and then the barrio teaches her what matters. And Jeff was there. You witnessed all this.
Yeah, we would just go into these meetings and just pitch and pitch and pitch. And the executives were not, there were like, 9 executives on the show? And they were never in the same meeting room at the same time. So we kept getting different notes fired at us all the time. So we kept pitching and pitching.
And I was dying.
Oh, tell them, what about you kept getting stopped at the gate at Warner Brothers.
Yeah, so, this is amazing. So every time I would pull into Warner Brothers, they would go, a person with your name stole equipment here. And even though we know that's not you, you still have to pull over. We have to search your car, and the master security person has to call in and allow you. And okay you.
Yep.
Every meeting. So after 42 of those, it was like, fuck, they're trying to tell me I don't belong here, and I'm just not listening. So things aren't going good. All of a sudden, I get invited like Harry Potter. Fucking Red Owl shows up to our apartment, and it has a big N on it, and they tell me, go to this Hollywood party, and it was on my birthday, be there at 7 p.m. and call in this number to RSVP. To this day, no one will tell me who talked to me, because I'm sure they're gone now. But I call in, I'm like, "Hey, this is Jorge Gutierrez, I'm RSVPing for this party. What is it?" And the person on the other side goes, "Just show up." And they hang up the phone. So it's my birthday, and Sandra's like, "You shouldn't go." This is the story of Maya, by the way. "You shouldn't go to this party." So at that point, I'm like, "Sandra, I really should go." And Netflix is potentially going to be doing amazing stuff. And there were rumblings all over the industry that they were going to go in with tons of money. So I go to this party, and it was like, you know how you hear jokes about the Illuminati and the lizard people? This was that. There was all the creators and directors, like everybody you know, famous, was at that party. Like, I was waiting for, you know, the Eyes Wide Shut masks and like the orgies to start.
Were they wearing cloaks?
Yeah, and like I remember walking in, like looking at the floor, making sure it wasn't plastic, because they could just kill all of us.
The walls.
So, amazing party, and there's tons of drinking and eating food, and it was just, they walk us to Sunset, and they go, this is Netflix animation. And we're gonna make things that no one's ever made before. We're going to allow, this is what they said, we're gonna allow directors and creators to make their dream projects. So, all the old timers, I have to say it was a generational thing, most of them said, bullshit. We've seen this before, this isn't real. A lot of the youngsters were like, where do I sign? I'm in the middle. I'm a little bit, you know, I've been beaten, but I'm young enough to remember a lot of things. So I was like, all right, I'll go in hesitant. So they sat me down, you know, drinking tequila because it's my birthday, so empty tequila bottle later. I sit down and they ask me, all right, Jorge, and there's witnesses to the story. All right, Jorge, pitch us, this is how they spelled it out. Pitch us something you don't think you can get made anywhere. And at that moment,
Wait, who hasn't seen Maya and the Three here?
I'm about to spoil it.
Oh, what?
I apologize. I'm about,
He's gonna spoil it.
sorry guys. I'm about to tell you the ending.
Look,
No,
this-
it's like a year.
Yeah.
It's been out a year.
like that.
So at that point, cut to all the tombstones of my family all over Mexico, and they all start shaking. And the drums, dong, 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 dong. And like the ghost of my grandfather goes, it is time.
And the Aztec whistles are
Yeah,
going up.
Aztec whistle. All their spirits go through the land. No visas, they cross the border.
Ice is like,
Yeah, Ghostbuster ISIS is trying to catch them. Can't get them. They all come through me, and I'm like, I literally turned into another person. Like my voice became like Aztec. I'm like,
speaking.
you will make story of my young princess. And I basically go, it's like Lord of the Rings, but with brown people, and it's 3 movies in one, and at the end, she fucking dies.
True.
All true story. And so the person in front of me, because I yelled all this, and she like cleared all the spit and tequila, and she's like, "That sounds like a good idea. We should do that." And so I'm going home, and I get a text from my manager, and she's like, "What the hell just happened? They just called me about a show for you." And that was it. They greenlit the show at the party. That will never, ever happen again. And I remember telling Sandra, like, I think they just bought the thing. So, of course, I quit immediately at Lego.
Yeah.
And I
Totally.
told, sorry, Jeff.
But he didn't tell me.
remember.
He's like, I gotta go. And I'm like, well, where are you going? And he's like, I can't tell you. If I tell you, I have to kill you. So he just leaves me at Warner Brothers, and he goes, I'll come back for you in 3. I'll come back for you. I'll call you. But when I call you, be ready.
Were you ready, Jeff?
Oh, he was ready.
I worked there for a while, and then I told them, I'm going to be here for a while, but I'm going to be leaving. But I don't know when. Just I'll be leaving. So they knew I was temporary. So
How did you find Jeff when you went for him?
Well, he was at that when I was at Lego. You were
Was
leaving
he pale
Disney.
and like under?
Oh, when I
eyes?
left, and I was like, I kissed him in the mouth, and I said, I'll come back for you. And like last of the Mohicans.
Well, the crazy thing was we were working at Dan Lin Productions, which
Yeah.
was in Hollywood, and I think it was like old Buster Keaton
Yep.
building. And down below, they actually had a slide that you could slide
Oh,
down.
yeah, they did.
And
yeah.
then down below, I was we were going to work on a Lego movie, and that's where the story area was going to be. And so they ordered a bunch of like large Lego bricks, and I made an office out of Lego bricks. Remember? And then they had like Nerf guns down there and Lego. There was a guy working down there on Lego.
Lego Master.
Lego Master.
I'm like, make
and
me
we
a
were
coffin.
we were getting ready to go. We
Yeah.
were ready to start making this thing, and I was talking to people about maybe coming over, and then Jorge just leaves. It was right after Christmas or something like that.
Yes.
Like I remember doing Halloween and Christmas there, and then you left.
So then, right, in life, you should take calculated risks. This was a humongous risk. We went to Netflix, and one of the first things I did, because again, I've been around enough to know when things aren't going to work out. So I made a choice, and I said, I'm going to spend my own money, and I'm going to hire Sandra, and I'm going to hire this guy named Esteban Pedroso to make digital maquettes of what the characters are going to look like.
Yeah.
Sandra will design the girls, I'll design the guys, and I'm going to write the pilot. I'm going to write the first episode. So I started on May 5th, right, Cinco de Mayo, because I have to be on brand. And it turned out it was a Saturday, so everybody got pissed. So I start, and I show up the first day, and I go, here are my character designs, here are my maquettes, and here's my pilot. You guys being the executives and Netflix, read it. If you don't like it, I quit. And you don't owe anybody anything. We'll save everybody trouble, we'll save everybody money, and I now have a pilot, and I now have
A complete kit.
a complete kit that I can take somewhere else. So I'm gonna make the show with you or without you. Which is super fucking ballsy, by the way.
Did you pee?
No, yeah, P went in and out again, right? So Netflix, to their credit, were like, oh, okay, we would have paid for all this. What happens with that is when you do development and the studio pays you to write a pilot, if the pilot doesn't go, they own the pilot. And then you have to buy it back from them. So this way, I don't know anything to anyone. So pitch, they read it. Obviously, they had issues and they had notes. And I put in, my ass from an infidelity, like all the big stuff that could be troublesome was in there. And I remember being in a meeting with, again, someone who's no longer there, who said, hey, Maya as a character is too strong in the beginning. This is, Hollywood logic math in arcs, right? A character that is strong and smart in the beginning, their arc will be very difficult in a narrative, right? Because normally you're either dumb and you turn smart, you're weak and you turn strong, you're selfish and you become, more empathic. Like those are basically Hollywood arcs, right? Her argument was, if Maya can fight already and is a character who's already confident, then where's she gonna go? Make her weak or make her dumb? So at that point, again, because of the way things work, if you are not ready for questions like that, and you don't have an answer to questions like that, your thing is gonna change. So the way I like to argue is by giving examples of successful things that have done the thing I wanna do, right? So when she said that, I'm like, oh, so you must not like Wonder Woman the movie. And you must not like Black Panther, because those are characters that stand out because they start strong. And their journey is not whether they can fight or not. Their journey is, what are they fighting for? And on the other side of the table, they go, you son of a bitch. I do like Black Panther, and I do like Wonder Woman. Make your little Maya show. So that's how those arguments work. It can't be, you like this, and I like this, and there's no argument. The argument has to be not just your taste, but it has to be based on things that have worked and made money. If you give arguments based on things that don't make money and aren't successful, that's not a good argument. You're basically shooting yourself in the foot. If you're arguing about an obscure thing that no one knows about, you might as well have made it up. If you reference, well, on One Piece episode 1072, there's a character that, that's not gonna work. The person on the other side is thinking big. So because of that, and because of all those arguments, and again, because of where we were coming from, Jeff is a feature guy. He had never worked in a TV show, so he was thinking feature. Thankfully, we had made a TV show because of Tigre. We had made Book of Life. So I was coming in going, on a series we learned this, on a movie we learned this. Here's what we think are the best two things about those two things. The best thing about a TV show is you get to visit and hang out with characters and see them go through different things. The bad thing about TV shows, especially if they're not serialized, is there's no real character arcs, right? SpongeBob can't change from episode to episode. The awesome thing about a movie is there is an evolution and there is an arc to all your leads. The bad thing about a movie is it's 90 minutes. Because there's only so many stories you can tell, and there's only so many things you can do in that world. And I'm sure you guys have seen movies where you go, fuck, I wish this had been 3 hours long, or I wish this had been a limited series, because they couldn't cram in everything. When you're making movies, as we've learned over the years, to make a 90-minute movie, you probably leave an hour and a half of footage on the floor of great backstories, great side characters, B plots, C plots. There's no room. It's not that they're not good. There's just no room, right, Jeff? I mean, the stories are legendary of all these things that didn't make it in the movie. And it wasn't because they weren't good. It was because kids can only hold their pee for 90 minutes. So the reason animated movies are 90 minutes are children bladders. I wish I was making that up, but that is the reason. It's not like some ancient storytelling belief. That's it. Because of how we make content now, especially on Netflix, we are no longer making things, at that time, we were no longer making things for an audience in the theater. We're making things for an audience at home. So now you can tell longer stories, you can tell serialized stories. Maya was never meant to be 40 episodes. It was meant to be Lord of the Rings, right? In my head, I was like,
From the start.
it's 3 movies. And if you watch
And
Lord of the
one
Rings,
season.
one
That's it.
season,
No-
3 movies.
That's it.
No second season.
If you watch Lord of the Rings, if a kid discovers Lord of the Rings today, they don't discover it in the theater. They discover it at home. And in their heads, they go, it's 3 movies, it's a series. The concept of a movie doesn't exist for something that's been around forever. The reality of what we do is movies, if you're lucky, live in a theater and a big screen. If you're lucky, 2 months. Guess where they live the rest of their existence? At home. Right? So why not make things for home with all the benefits of movies and all the benefits of series? So that was the intent with Maya. Jeff, how did you approach being a head of story on this thing?
Well, being used to, I worked at Disney for 18 years, and they just, you just know, how to work a movie. So we just approached it. Since it was one season, this is just going to be an epic story, and we're just going to chop it up into, acts, basically, right? And so, but the cool thing about working on Maya is that, like Jorge said, we could spend time with each character, and they can all have arcs, and they can all, learn things and learn from each other. Some survive, some don't.
Was it hard knowing where you were going to chop it? Because, I got to read the entire script, and it was pretty long.
Yeah.
So did you know where you were
Well,
going to?
we talked about maybe 10 episodes, but then the last episode turned into just the longer. So at Netflix, there is no time, specific. It doesn't have to be half an hour because of commercials or anything like that. So it could be 14 minutes, it could be 34 minutes, so it doesn't matter.
Well, it does matter. It does matter in the budget, right? So they go, you have, for example, for Maya, it was about $40 million. So Book of Life costs $50 million to do 90 minutes. My pitch to Netflix was, give me $50 million and I will give you 3 movies. Because when you make a movie, all the building, all the developing, modeling, rigging, building the sets, building the environments, you do it once. And then you can light and animate for 30 minutes or you can light and animate for 3 hours. But those upfront costs are the same. And movies never take advantage of that because by the time the sequel comes out, you basically have to rebuild everything because the software has changed and the pipelines have changed. So if you become self-aware enough about all the production stuff, you can start pitching things in a way where you go, with your resources, I can give you more than what you're used to. Because what we do is, we're all artists. Most of the people here are artists. The studios don't make things to help the art form, or to help us grow, or to make the world better. At the core, the reason studios make things is to make money. And the reason they need us is because they can't do it without us, right? So if they could do it without us, believe me, they would do it without us. If we could do it without their funding, believe me, we would do it without their funding. So this is a symbiotic relationship, and you have to come to terms and you have to accept, especially when you're making big stuff where you go, I don't know where I'm gonna get $40 million. I mean, I'm sure the cartel will help me, but I love my family and I don't want them dead. So when you're making these decisions and you go, all right, studio, you're used to spending this much. What if you gave me this and I gave you this much? And I'm basing it all on real existing data. And that's where having a producer is so important. Tim Yoon, our producer, was monumental in all of this. So when we presented Maya, it was, what a fucking bargain this is.
Yeah.
You will get 3 movies for the price of 1.
4.5 hours.
Yeah, 4.5 hours of content. Oh my God. So obviously the feature people were like, this is incredible. The series people were like, this is so expensive. How is this possible? Thankfully, Maya was greenlit by the movie people. But it's literally the same amount of stuff. It's just who's looking at it and what are they used to spending. A feature person from Disney or Warner Brothers, or those people are used to movies costing $100 million, $200 million, right? That's what a Pixar or Disney feature movie costs. So when some crazy person goes, I'm actually going to give you more for that budget, everybody gets excited. So we rode that excitement, and obviously we had to prove it, and we had to be really smart. And originally, for anybody who's seen Maya and the Three, it was way, way, way more complex. There was an extra chapter, there was way more villages, there was a ton of stuff. And the reality was, all right, it's on you guys, your budget is this. Do you make those sacrifices and you cut those story elements out, or do you leave them in, but now you have less money to spend, so the footage will look less good? And that comes down to the creators, right? So you go, all right, if I keep everything in, then everybody's bald. There's no hair in the show.
Yeah.
Fuck, I really like hair. Let's cut out this chapter. All right, everybody. I mean, it came down to fingers, right? So Maya's characters have 4 fingers. If you add up 5 fingers for every character, every crowd person, animation, rigging, literally someone added the amount of money. It was like $3 million.
For one finger.
For one finger.
For one
Or
finger
two
on every
fingers.
character. You take out that one finger, we got to spend the
always
$3 million on effects and cloth and other sims. But those are the things that, honestly, the audience could care less. Nobody watches the animated thing and goes, oh my God, the way they amortize their cloth sims. No one cares. So
But there were things like we cut water effects.
Yes. Yeah, I remember there were a
yeah.
lot of things that were like, I'd be
Hair.
like drawing and I'd be like, check out my awesome side character with her amazing hair. I did so much research. And Jorge's like, yeah, our budget just got cut even more. And,
She's out.
yeah, she's gone. And I'm like, oh God.
Well, I
what?"
mean, that's a great segue. So the way Sandra and I have worked over the years is she usually designs all the female characters, all the cute things. I design all the monsters, the ugly stuff, the men. And
Things with skulls. If it has a skull on it.
things with
or
skulls.
draw it.
And originally, there was an understanding between the two of us that when I drew women, they looked like they had relaxed morals. And so, because we work in children's entertainment, Sandra became the keeper of designing female characters. And as you guys know, for a lot of male character designers, we're basically drawing idealized fantasy version of what a female is. And when a female character designer designs women, they're looking in the mirror. They're looking at their friends. They're looking at a thing that's deeper and more layered. It's like if I get hired to design a character from Mexico, my points of reference are endless. If you ask me to design a character from Japan, for me, I'm looking at it from the outside. And so I might not pick up the nuances and the subtleties, and it's never going to be the same coming from someone from the culture than coming from someone from outside the culture. And I believe that in all design. So approaching Maya, when I met Sandra, we met in high school at a punk rock concert in Tijuana. Crazy band. Her sister thought we would make a good couple. We were in high school juniors, summer. Sandra was 2 hours late, like a good Mexican girl. I went into this crazy mosh pit thinking she wasn't gonna show up. It was a local band, Tijuana No, which I love. I got like punched in the face. I was bleeding. I was like mud everywhere. I was like a monster person. And then Sandra shows up 2 hours late. And someone yells at me like, she's here, and I come out of the mosh pit, and I see the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life. And it was like a movie. It was like broken teeth and bottles flying through the air in slow motion. And 2 weeks from that moment, I asked her to marry me. And she said no. So I fell in love with this rebel girl who had 3 sisters. Whoa. Maya has 3 brothers. Yeah. Who had a family that was, her dad was a doctor, her 3 sisters studied medicine, mom was a teacher, and Sandra wanted to be an artist. So she was the rebel in the family. And she had short hair, which for a lot of girls in Mexico at that time was kind of a fuck you to the ideal of, Mexican women are supposed to have long hair.
I just thought it was comfortable.
Yeah. And so I love this rebel girl, and she was going to this school that was like, it's called Lázaro Cárdenas, which is at that time where they sent you in Tijuana, where they sent you if you got kicked out of other schools. Yeah. This was the toughest, craziest, and where all the artists came from. And I was like, fuck, I want to go to that school. And so I was so excited when I met her. And so the show, the character of Maya, I got asked on a previous panel, like, who the fuck are you to tell the story of a 15-year-old girl? And I said, well, I came out of a Mexican girl. I have a Mexican girl sister, and I married a Mexican girl, and this is my love letter. My love letter to all 3 of them, and my love letter to what I perceived to be this rebellious girl who lived in a sexist, patriarchy-driven Mexican culture, and basically fought her way to do what was right. And then this concept of sacrifice, right? Because when people talk about Aztecs and Mayans and Mesoamerica, the first negative that anybody brings up worldwide is, didn't they sacrifice humans? Didn't they do human sacrifices? Ew. And to me is, hold on, guess what we all do every day? We sacrifice. All of us, we sacrifice. We sacrifice our youth, we sacrificed our time. A lot of moms sacrifice a lot for their kids. A lot of dads sacrifice a lot for their families. Women sacrifice for their loved ones. Men sacrifice for their loved ones. Everybody makes sacrifices. You can make your whole life a sacrifice. People make sacrifices in the army, firemen, policemen. You're telling me sacrifices is something that you find disgusting? Well, then you're not living on this planet. Because that's what we do. We sacrifice for the greater good. Or we don't. So that's what the show's about. It's about women, and it's about, if you guys really break down Maya and the 3, it's a show about shitty dads and their kids fixing the world. And women in the show are strong, not because it's an idealized version of these women are just born strong, is they had to become strong because the world was against them, and they triumphed. And that is everywhere. That's worldwide. Happy to report early on, when we presented Maya, there was a lot of fear, right? First of all, it's Mesoamerican, what's the world gonna say? Pearl clutching. There's a human sacrifice, gods wanna sacrifice this girl, oh my God, what are they gonna say? There's an infidelity, at the core of the show. We both come from families with infidelity. A lot of our crew came from that. Hello, world history, full of infidelity. This is part of the human experience. So they tested the show with white, well, it wasn't white. It was Latino kids and non-Latino kids, Latino parents and non-Latino parents. And we got to go. You went.
Yeah, I watched.
And a lot of places don't let you go because you'll hear all this stuff. But my favorite one, I laughed so loud that we were behind the glass, and I think I made the glass shake. But they were so they're asking everybody all the tough questions, like, well, how did you feel about the human sacrifice? Well, it makes sense in this culture. But everybody was all in on everything. They got to the non-Latino moms. And they go, and obviously they're mostly white, and they go,
There's some Asians in there.
Some Asians too, they represent.
Sprinkled around.
And they go, how did you feel about the infidelity in the show? And I kid you not, my favorite answer. This white lady goes, well, it makes sense, they're Mexican. And I laughed so hard, I was like, ah! And the glass went like clunk, 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 clunk. Like I wanted to smash the glass and like hug her. Like, thank you. So the show comes out, right? We're promoting the show. When you make something about the culture, you're gonna get the whatever it is, the 5% of people who are like, why wasn't this animated in Mexico? Why wasn't every voice,
Right.
An actor who is indigenous? Why are they speaking English? Like,
Right.
They should be now.
You'll never win.
Like,
Yeah.
there's that hyper extreme audience that you will never please. It will never be authentic enough. Like, how dare you animate on Tangent, where Maya software would have been the most, all right. And then there's the other extreme on the other angle, where they go, ew, we don't like that culture. So you will never please the two extremes. And by the way, those two extremes, they're kind of buddies, right? Because they're rejecting things. So you got to worry about the 95% in the middle. So the show premieres. We do tons of press in Mexico, tons of press here, tons of press in Latin America. Thankfully, and you can't predict these things, right? Because with Maya, they were going, what point of reference do we have for an animated cartoon about this? Our only references are Emperor's New Groove with your favorite Latino actors, David Spade and John Goodman.
I worked on that.
Jeff worked on that.
It's my fault.
How dare you, colonizer?
I worked on this to right the wrong.
Yeah. And Road to El Dorado, which is, it's a white savior movie done at a different time. So and these are like 20 years ago. So there's no real point of reference, and a lot of the things at Netflix are based on previous successes, and the algorithm can only decipher things that happened before. So it was completely risky for them to make this. Happy to report, Maya was top 10 in 54 countries worldwide.
Name the countries, because it's interesting.
Yeah, the top 10 lists were pretty unique in that they said, we assumed that it would do well in the US, and we assumed it would do well in Mexico, and we kind of assumed it would do well in Latin America. So our biggest fears were Europe and Asia, right? For something to do well in all three territories, that's a huge deal. Maya broke through that barrier, and the #1 country in the world for Maya, meaning the most people with a Netflix account that watch Maya, was Vietnam. Number 2, Greece. And then number 3, Thailand. It was crazy. Then I think it was Mexico, then the US, and then everybody else. But what was crazy was this idea that if you do something and it connects in a certain region, it doesn't matter where it came from if the stories are universal. Right? So Maya is a teenage girl who's rebellious, who thinks she knows better, and is immature, and in the end learns her parents maybe were a little bit right, but learns that the world was more complicated and that the true way to be a hero is to sacrifice yourself. that could take place in Pasadena. That took place 1,000 years ago in China. It could take place 500 years in the future in Japan. That's a universal story. So the setting, the culture, the show is not about those things. Shows are not about cultures, or at least to me, the good shows aren't about cultures. The good shows are about characters. And the really good shows are about relationships. And if those relationships are universal, and if those relationships feel authentic, and they feel unique and relatable, then they can be set anywhere with anyone. And I think honestly, it was one of those like, thank God it did well, because if it hadn't, we would have set back, because Hollywood always learns the wrong lesson, right? So if Maya hadn't done well, it probably would have been because the story wasn't good.
Yeah.
And if the story wasn't good, Hollywood would have said, it's the culture. People are rejecting the culture.
Yeah.
When a movie with a female hero or a hero of a different culture doesn't do well in Hollywood, they don't go, it's the writing or it's the story. They go, people are rejecting the culture. If Black Panther hadn't done well, guess what Hollywood would have said? See, you can't make a black hero with a black director. If Wonder Woman would have bombed, see, you can't do a female hero with a female director. Hollywood always learns the wrong lesson. So the more successful things that happen, those become arguments when you pitch. And you go, I want my thing to be like that successful thing, but here's my version of it. Right. I get pitched all the time. Here's my Colombian book of life. Here's my Argentinian book of life, my Brazilian book of life. And I always tell them, guys, don't do that. Book of Life made $100 million. Say, this is my Colombian Coco. Coco made $800 million. It's not about what movie you like. It's about which one helps you get your movie made. Even if you don't like them, use the arguments. They're there for you.
So when we're like working on characters, when we're talking about Maya, this is a little secret, Hollywood secret. No, everything you write, it's about character relationships. So when we were talking about developing Maya and a relationship with her dad, we were always relating to our own relationships, to our own, parents, and that's how we understand the world. When you grow up, those are your first relationships. So you have to understand how these things work, and when you're telling good stories and you make these things the right way or the truthful way, that's how, it feels more real. The characters feel real.
I remember there's a moment in Maya where Maya yells at her mom, I hate you. And someone in our crew was like, well, that's just Brave. I'm like, yeah, but it's Brave. It's in the movie Brave. But it was in my house in 1982 when my sister yelled at my mom.
Right.
And that was way before Brave. So...
No, but when we write these moments, when these moments are written, these are real moments that come out of our life experiences. So you don't just write it because it sounds cool. It's because it's a real thing. Yeah. And it feels real when you watch it.
So talking about character design, I imagine this. So I had this ideal about who is Maya, this character, and I did these super shitty sketches. Basically, the shittier my sketch, the more beautiful it becomes when Sandra does her beauty. But the idea for the design of Maya was, let's show a character who's stuck between things and who is crossed. So one side of her hair is long, one side of her hair is short. She's literally hasn't made up her mind. All her tattoos don't match. Everything is uneven on her. She's trying to keep it together, but she is unbalanced.
She's not balanced.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So Sandra was like, yeah. What was it? Literally your first sketch.
Yeah.
Maya. Can you
Yeah.
talk about how easy you make it look?
No. Well, usually the way we work is, like Jorge said, like he comes up with a sketch and usually we'll be having lunch or we'll be having breakfast or dinner or whatever, and he'll grab some sort of napkin or a Post-it and he'll like just gradually just start churning things out there. And it comes out like a doodle, and then he'll hand it to me and he'll describe it like he did right now, and then I'll be like, okay. And I'll go to my computer, my Wacom, and I'll whip something up and I'll be like, how about this? No. Okay.
That's
Well, what
not
did I
true.
do?
It's
Yes,
more
it
like-
is. No.
It's more like, my love, perhaps
No,
it would be best
it's
if...
not. No, it's not. not. And then I'm like, fine, okay, all right, what did I do wrong? And he's like, well, this and this and that. Okay, fine. All right, so I'll do it again, and he'll be like, no. And I'll be like, okay. This goes back and forth to the point where we're yelling at each other. And I have to come upstairs, and he hears me just going up the stairs, and he's like, oh, and he's already greeting me at the corner, and he's like, I asked you to, whatever. And I'm like, well, it doesn't go like that. And he's like, well, it's not working because you have to put it in the lineup. And I'm like,
That's not how I remember any of this.
yes, it is. And then,
To me, it's
nobody knows
like
the
a
truth.
passionate tango. Like,
Nobody knows the truth. See, I may be quiet, but just get me started and you'll know everything. And then he'll wake Luke up and he'll be like, Daddy, Mommy, why are you fighting? And then we'll be like, what's happening? No, I'm kidding, not the Luca part. But then after a while, we'll be like, okay, that's cool. And we get down to the nitty gritty of what the outline of the character is gonna look like. And then we sigh and we hug, and then I go downstairs and he goes upstairs, and then he goes, now color. And that's another battle. Because this man is the king of color, right? So he comes in and he's like, okay, what about this? And it starts all over again. And then don't get me started with the ornamentation, because he's the king of skulls, as everybody knows. So I'm like, how about 2? And he's like, no. How about 3? No. 4? No. Give it to me. And then he takes it away and he gives it to me, and you can't even see the character anymore because he's covered with skulls. So I have to go in there and I have to take him away, and then I have to be fighting with him, and he's like, why'd you take away my skulls, Sandra? And I'm like, because there's too many, Jorge. And then finally, eventually we whittle it down, and then finally we got Maya.
How many skulls are on Miklan? How many
So
skulls?
for anybody who's counted, it's 666 skulls are on the villain.
You should have offered a prize, man.
So, all right, so once we design, we're of the belief that the way because we're character designers too, we design the world around the characters as opposed to the characters around the world, right? And so everything in the world has to look like the characters themselves made it. And so once we design Maya, we design the parents around Maya, and then the 3 around her, and it all grows from your lead. I am of the belief that in your movie or your TV show, there's real estate on the screen, and your main character will take up the most real estate visually of your film. So you can't overanalyze how important your main character design is.
Yeah.
The biggest problem in feature animation, and I would say in TV animation, is that character design as a part of the process gets watered down and forgotten, because once that initial concept happens, it moves to other departments. So the animation department goes, the legs are too short, or the eyes are too small, or it's too complicated, or there's too many things. We need to make it easier to animate. The rigging department goes, that's impossible to rig, so we need you to change this and this. Modeling department, that's too hard to blah, blah, blah. Every department does their thing to make it easier. And by the way, they're doing it to protect our teams, they're doing it to protect the budget, they're doing it to protect their departments. By the time everybody gets through with it and you get your production model, oh my God, it's easier to animate, easier to light, easier to texture, easier to sim, easier to rig. But now it's the blandest character in the movie.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. The way we work is, because we're character designers, we treat the maquette like the character. In stop motion, animator in stop motion is handed a model, basically a maquette, and they go, figure out how to move them. And they do wonderful things, and they figure out stuff. That's how we approach it. So for example, for us, after we're done with our design, we work with a CG maquette artist, Esteban Pedroso, and then we work with brilliant designer animators like Tom Caulfield, who I think might be in the room, who take that maquette and draw the character and pose them out. So by the time it gets to rigging and modeling and animation, it's all been figured out for them.
It's a blueprint.
And we go, we did this with no model and no rigging. What are you guys going to do with all this stuff? So then it becomes a thing that grows. And for us, as designers, if I wasn't the director, I couldn't do that. So it's the only reason our stuff looks like that is because the director is a designer. Most directors come from story, or most directors come from animation. It's super rare to have directors come from design. So that's why movies look the way they look.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
As a former teacher of yours, why is Dad 15 feet tall?
All right.
And Mom is 5 feet tall?
So the reason Mom is tiny and Dad is a giant, to me, these are all metaphors, right? So Dad is a metaphor for machismo. It's so big, it's uncontrollable, it's dangerous, and it could kill you. But if harnessed, it can protect you, and it can be something that saves things. Mom is tiny, honestly, because she's a chess piece. She's supposed to look like the queen in a chess game.
Yeah, you notice her dress is
Yeah,
just,
her dress, everything about her
kind of
is a chess
floats.
piece. And that's why she looks like that. And when you play chess, the queen is the most powerful character. So if you watch the show, she really is. She's a warrior and analytical and a diplomat. She's the whole package. Her only flaw, of course, is that she married the king. Right? No character is perfect. The idea with Dad was, this is how men in that culture see power. It's basically strength. What Maya figures out is it's inner strength that matters, right? Falling down, normal. How you get up, that's what matters. Breaking your bone, normal. Fighting with broken bones, that's what matters. Realizing that at the end of the day, as long as the people after you will be okay, your sacrifice will be worth it, right? That was a big part of the movie or of the show. Once Maya sees her little brothers are babies and they're gonna be okay, that's when she goes, I can now die.
So like the prophecy was set up, right?
Yeah, from the beginning, the prophecy was always, Maya will sacrifice herself to save the world and become the sun. But the sacrifice couldn't be someone else sacrificing her. The promise of the show was, she will convince us and herself that the sacrifice is worth it. And when you let the audience be a part of that process, and when you let the audience go, she has to do it. When you convince the audience, this character who we love, who we've been rooting for, she's right. She has to die. That's a huge contract you make with the audience.
Yeah.
And when that pays off, hopefully he stays with you. And most religions, I'm not a super religious guy, but most religions have a main character who sacrifices themselves. So this story has been told. But now it's a woman.
But like
All right.
Dad's machismo, right?
Yeah, machismo.
It led him into sacrificing his own sons.
Yeah.
Because he thought he was the prophecy.
Because he thought they were the prophecy.
So machismo is something, for you guys who are from Mexico who know this, machismo is the biggest weakness of the culture, but it can also be the most, if harnessed, it could be one of the things that could save it. Machismo that is about honor and that is about tradition and is about changing and about evolving and about uplifting is not male, it's human. Machismo that is about inequality and blindly believing things that came before you, stubbornness, and that's toxic masculinity. That's basically how we describe those things. So no one is perfect, right? In our world, in our cartoons, we try to reflect the real world. There's no good guys and bad guys. We're all shades of gray, right? No one's perfect. So what you want to emphasize in your characters is the choices that they make. Doing the right thing for good is boring. Doing the right thing that will hurt you, that's interesting, right? Because that's sacrifice. And that's what we all do, right? You make those choices in life and you're like, fuck, if I cheat here, it'll be easier. If I don't cheat here, it'll be harder, but it'll be better. And that builds character, literally builds character. So design. You want to talk more about design? How are we doing on
What's
time?
the time?
Yeah, what's the
All right, 12:57. We have 13 minutes. Q&A.
Q&A?
Go.
So I'm like indígena Zapotec.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
We're sorry. We apologize if we offended you.
Damn.
How do you feel like ever since Maya and the Three, like the future for like indígena? I'm not talking about like like 90s Musafu like type movies, but like I'm talking about like hardcore Mesoamerican like movies, television. Ever since Maya and the Three, how do you feel like that future looks like, and how do we try to like get in?
I'm sure you guys have seen Wakanda Forever trailer, right? MCU going, oh, Namor should be Mesoamerican, and hiring Tenoch, and going and highlighting the culture. It's cool, but that is not coming from that culture. It's someone from the outside going, ooh, what a delicious buffet of food. Let me grab that and put it in my restaurant. So that's cool, and that's obviously the way you showcase the culture universally. But what I hope happens is they go, the culture's cool. Who are the people behind the culture? And can we get the creators and the writers and the people behind the camera to also be a part of this? And then can that audience from other parts of the world, basically they can go, hey, Maya's a success. Wakanda Forever was a success. There's something there. Hollywood is a machine. Right? There's no way to shame a machine, right? You can't be like, curse you, microphone. Microphone doesn't care. The machine of Hollywood eats money. So if you shame the machine and you're like, hey, why isn't there more representation? The robot laughs at you. But if you go, hey, robot, how is it possible that you're leaving all this money on the table? Because stories from there are successful worldwide. Then the robot goes, oh my God, what have I done? And so that's where we're at right now. And I think after Wakanda Forever, I hope there's a mini boom of the eye of Sauron looking through those stories. But I hope that happens.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Kind of related to that one, how do you keep the machine then from viewing culture as a genre? Because we get to have a whole bunch of different white guy movies and a whole bunch of different perspectives, but the second you have the one, Latino film or the one Mexican-centric film or the one Mesoamerican film, that's it. We're good for the next 20 years between Rhodes, El Dorado, and mine.
Well, that's a tough question. The problem is when the stories are about the culture, right? The way my perception of it is, when movies or shows are about the culture, they will not, in my opinion, be as universal. When the shows are made by the culture, for the culture, same thing, same problem, right? That audience, whether we like it or not, is just not big enough to justify the expense. I always use this money example. So in Mexico, Book of Life made $10 million, right? This is an audience that loved the movie, tested incredibly well. It made $10 million. Hollywood math is you have to get $2 for every dollar you invest. Therefore, in order for Book of Life to be successful in Mexico, Book of Life would have had to have cost $3 million. Book of Life cost $50 million. So you can't make Book of Life for Mexico. You have to make it for the world. The moment you're trying to make shows for one small audience, that means your budget is going to be so tiny, and that audience will be so small, it will not make a difference. So it has to be global. It has to be thought out for everybody. And a lot of creators have a hard time going, there's never been representation of where I come from. My thing will have to hit everything.
Yeah.
And then the audience goes, I've never seen a show about, I don't know, East LA, this specific street. So if nothing in there, everything better be so accurate that I'm not offended. And then that audience is 12 people. So you gotta open it up, right? The way I talk about culture is, it's a painting, right? You're painting a window, and this window should feel like a fucking privilege to the audience that's not from there to be able to witness this culture,
Lovely.
right? So you're inviting people. But then the more they look at this painting, they more literally they're putting their hands into this window, they realize it's a mirror. And it's reflecting their human experiences. And you go, father, sons, daughter, lovers, old versus young, rich versus poor. Those stories have to be universal. So this idea that the culture is what we uplift, no, it's the people in the culture. You as a creator of a culture, if you try to carry the culture on your back, it will crush you. I'm sorry, no one's strong enough to carry the culture. I can't be like, I speak for Mexico. Impossible.
But Jorge, you are the king of
No. The way I see it is, the boulder that is your culture, don't carry it. Stand on top of that boulder and roll with it. Do not define. Your culture cannot define you. This is big stuff, guys. Your culture cannot define you. You define your culture. That's the culture is the canvas. Tell your story on top of it.
But also, like, I think as people of color in animation, you need to go out there and work your way up into those positions so that you have more influence over what stories are told.
Yep.
And don't just try to be, I just want to be, I just want to be a storyboard artist. Like, always work up. Like, always want to be a director so you can tell those stories.
And we all worked our way up. It wasn't like...
Yeah, we just need more people to be in the industry. Because on my hand, like, I can only count like 8 or 10 people that are Filipino.
Yeah.
That I know. And I know there are more, but people that I know. And to think about it, like, think about the animation industry just in Hollywood. Like, that's not a lot of people. So when you think, like, when people talk like, well, how many like Latino directors are there? How many can you think of in animation?
Feature animation?
Or even TV?
I mean, 5 or 6.
See, like,
Handful.
you just
Yeah, it's
need
pretty
to,
crazy.
we just need
And
to,
women, honestly, there's not
right?
enough
And
women.
women too, like, just,
Women.
All right, 5 more minutes.
First of all, I just want to thank you both for designing a main character with a big curved nose like mine.
That was me.
Anyway, I was just wondering, did you have to fight kind of with execs at all to convince them that Maya's sacrifice was a happy ending?
It was huge. It was the reason you can't kill your main character, turns out, is sequels.
Yes.
they actually asked for a sequel after
did.
because it did so well.
But that was supposed to come Chris Punch.
Yes.
Yes, but no.
It was.
But the reason, I mean, the original Book of Life story ended with Manolo dying. And Maria was the one telling the story as an old woman. In a graveyard. And then the movie ended, and she died, and she was reunited with Manolo. The head of the studio at that time was literally tears in his eyes. He was like, this is the most beautiful story that we will not make. Because we want Book of Life 2. So that is literally the reason you can't kill the main character. So when they asked, hey, can Maya not die? Can you like just fuck her up and like, maybe like lose a leg or something?
Eye patch.
Yeah, I was like, if you don't let me kill Maya, I quit. And that was it. That's the secret.
That's one of the things that drew me to this show because you're like, I'm going to kill the main character. I'm like, sign me up. Because working at Disney, you can never kill the main character.
main
It's always
character.
the false death, but then they come back to life.
Yeah.
We actually kill Maya. Sorry, spoilers.
No, I think from the very start, I think Jorge was very
Yeah,
like,
that was
it. A, B, C. There was no in between. There was
Starts
no
out,
nothing.
then
Yeah.
she's dead.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, let's do this.
Yeah, they're like, wow, those guys are really excited about killing a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah. Yeah, but not only that, there was a couple of other deaths too, and
Yeah.
I mean,
And by the way, spoiler alert, we're all gonna die.
yay!
If you follow a story long enough, it all ends in death.
You guys already knew Maya was gonna die from the beginning. How did you decide that you were also gonna kill off Stats? Yeah. And then have them reunite, like,
So-
at the sun and moon?
So there's a famous myth about these twin warriors, jaguar twins, and when they died, they were honored by becoming the sun and the moon. And so that myth inspired Maya. And to me it was, well, what if they're lovers? What if the sun and the moon are lovers? Oh, what if one's a vampire and he's half, literally like,
Oh, yeah.
that's literally how
Nice.
how we broke it down. And the biggest honor is the sun, and it's usually male. And so it was, why don't we make the sun female? It's the warmth, it's life, it's the earth. So it literally grew from that. And then in most movies, the prince fights to save the princess. And in this one, the princess saves the prince.
And this is Jorge comes in at like 3 in the morning, and he's
Yeah.
like, I got an idea. You gotta wake up, I have an idea.
And then, and sometimes I'm like, fuck you, Sleeping Beauty. This is backwards. Like, it's that crazy. But the idea was always, I'm like a lot of story nerds, I love Shakespeare. And to me, the most romantic thing about Romeo and Juliet is that they die. So it was like, I want them to die so that their love stays eternal.
I remember you coming to me and you're like, what if there's this giant snake, two-headed snake that comes in and eats everybody? And that wasn't in the pitch, but
Yeah.
then you just came in and just like, what if this happens? I'm like, yes. Keep telling me more.
He's the greatest head of story I've ever worked with.
I mean, why not? Why not do that? Because we're just going all out. Let's just do it. If Netflix is going to allow you to do what you want to do, why not?
Yeah, for sure.
And this is an animated show, so you can do whatever you want.
That was a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you would go about thinking about designing characters in a 3D space? I think a lot of your work is very graphic and flat.
In a 3D space?
Yeah, so our big cheat is we design in front view, character design-wise,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we don't design poses. So we love that costume designers design in the most neutral pose. And if in a front boring pose, the design can live and exist and showcase character, then when the acts and moves, it'll just multiply that.
Yeah.
That's like the silhouette, right?
Yeah,
the
silhouette.
best silhouette.
I'd also like to add real quick that Jorge's always been of the mindset of if you're going to design a character, the minute you look at it, don't design it with that eye, or don't design it like, what it's like. It's an evil person. Oh, it's going to be put it neutral. If you can look at that character and that character is telling you I'm evil just by like
The clothes
neutral
they wear,
pose,
their hair.
yeah, then you got it. The rest is easy. It's icing on the cake,
And then you go, all right, I'm going to design Sats to look like a motherfucker who's evil. Reveal he's actually
That's even
tender
cooler.
and honorable. Oh, so the way he looks
Doesn't go with what we
doesn't go
thought.
with who he turned out to be. So then because I believe that a lot of character designers trick everybody with the poses. If you take a guy in a t-shirt and you make him go like this in the character design, and you go, here's my character design of the villain, people go, oh yeah, that's great. That's just a t-shirt and pants. Like there's no costume there. There's nothing there. So that's a big thing that has worked for
Neutral,
us.
yeah.
And then like all character designers, we hate turnarounds. So we just do front view.
Do you hate characters?
I hate turnarounds myself. It's a technical thing, like
It's
know.
totally
it'll turn
technical.
out.
It's okay. It's all
All right, we have 112. We'll go until they kick us out. Right?
He says to wrap it
All
up.
right, wrap it up.
Never mind.
right.
No.
He's running out of space, hard drive space.
All right, last one.
Okay, sorry. So this is gonna be a little bit of a goofy question, so I kind of apologize. So when you guys were designing Zats, were you like kind of aware that like his physical appearance is like very reminiscent? Like were you aware that a lot of people were gonna be falling in love with him? Because he's like,
Fuck yeah.
the fact that he has Diego's voice too, right?
Yeah, I was like,
Like Sasuke type guy.
Well, Diego Luna, you knew Diego Luna
yeah, I was
gonna
like,
do the
I'm gonna
voice.
Yeah, for
design
sure.
a character that looks like what I hear when Diego talks to me. Hey, Jorge, how are you?
When we were recording Diego, he actually kissed you on the cheek.
Yeah, and I was like,
It was a. I've never seen Jorge blush, but he actually blushed. He held it too. He held his cheek out there for a moment longer than he should have.
Like I tried to kiss him on the same cheek when he's not that cheek.
infidel, do not touch his spit. All right, you guys, and on that super sexual harassment note, we end. Thank you for coming. Thank you, guys. Oh, photo.
Photo.
Everybody.
Quick picture.
She's gonna take a picture of everybody.
Okay.
Hey, don't leave yet.
Don't leave yet.
Okay, ready? Everyone go, yay! 1, 2, 3.
All right, we gotta do a selfie.
Selfie.
Oh,
Turn around.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
Guys, hola! I recognize you. How are you? I told you that you
All right, I think we gotta go outside because they're gonna start a new thing.
You were looking at these things. I'm so happy that you came. Thank you.
All right.